Okay, so we research our results with diabetes. We wonder how many of our patients were diabetic before surgery and are diabetic after surgery. And then how many of them do we actually maybe potentially use the word cure? So we did a survey, and it's really interesting to hear the results. We asked patients, we've got about 1,000 people answer, did you have diabetes before the surgery? And about 25% of our patients are diabetic pre-op. Then we ask them, post-op, are you diabetic? And at year 1, about 75% said they were no longer diabetic. And at year 2, 85%. At year 3, 95% said they weren't diabetic. So you can see we were curing diabetes a little at a time. But a funny thing happened, because we also asked a different question. At year 1 after the surgery, we ask you, are you taking any diabetes medicines anymore after surgery, even though they were taking them pre-op? 95% said nope, they weren't taking them on year 1. And 95% nope, not taking them on year 2. And 95% said nope, not taking them at year 3. So when we asked people, are you diabetic, it was, no. It took 3 years to get there, to say that. But they were off their medicines at year 1. But when I ask you in your heart, do you believe you're diabetic, at 3 months, 4 months, not yet. He wasn't ready to just blurt out, nope, I'm not a diabetic anymore. But if he comes back in 3 years and I ask him, are you a diabetic? If you're like our other patients, he's going to say, quickly and to the point, nope. But having been a diabetic for how long?
Probably 9 years.
For 9 years, only 4 months into the MGB, you weren't ready to just give a simple no answer.
Well, I can tell you, my doctor, he was always, well, Scott, come in, let's get a full blood screening, and we'll make sure we'll adjust your medications. When I came back in to look at the medications, basically everything that was high before is all into a normal range, and so he was shocked.
Yep.
I said, well, do you need to put me on anything? He goes, no.
Yeah. But in your heart, when I ask you, are you a diabetic, you kind of stumbled
I'm not diabetic today.
Right, but that's I'm not disagreeing with you. I think you were right to say I'm not. You didn't say yes.
Yeah.
But when I ask you in 3 years if you're like our other patients, because you're still into this new range. It's a little early to say you're not diabetic anymore. You're 4 months. But in 3 years, even though today you're off all your medicines and tomorrow and next year and the year after, it's an interesting thing. So the intellectual assessment of your physical body takes some time. The diabetes, in my opinion, I'm going to say, in my patients, by measuring the medicines they have to take, is gone quickly. But when their mind, their perception catches up is about 3 years out. And we find that same thing true with how you look at yourself and how you look in the mirror. You think, I'm heavy, I'm heavy, I'm heavy, I've been heavy, I'm still heavy. And we hear that same thing. People feel like they're a heavy person even when they start to get thinner. And there's the scientific term is called hysteresis. In other words, something happens, it takes a while for the perception to catch up. So I would say, in my mind, I think you may no longer be a diabetic. When it happens up here, when you start to think, oh, I'm no longer a diabetic, is about 2 or 3 years from now. Which is kind of interesting because that perception has to catch up.
I really like that because when I was diagnosed with diabetes, they said, you'll never be cured.
Right. Say that. That's it. Say that. So this is for the video. You've got to say this. So when I was diagnosed with diabetes, they clearly told me this is a lifetime illness. You cannot cure diabetes. Okay? Let's just stop for a second. Good, honorable, intelligent, specialist, knowledgeable about diabetes, look patients in the eye and say, you're diabetic, you'll never be cured. This is a lifelong disease. And we cured diabetes.
That's why I'm here.
How long was your surgery? How many minutes?
It was really short, like 43 minutes or...
Okay, so imagine you could have diabetes cured, an incurable disease according to your doctor, in less time it takes to have your teeth cleaned. And maybe, now I'll tell you my experience, when I see you, I see kind of a normal, healthy, I hope happy appearing young man, and you know what I see? When I saw diabetics in the past as a general surgeon, I saw them to cut off their leg because it was full of gangrene. I saw them with blindness to do a kidney transplant. And they were on dialysis and their stomach bloated and sick and things like that. And to imagine there's a possibility, not a guarantee, a possibility that you'll not ever face that because of a 43-minute surgery, I say we stop clinic and just go out and have a drink.
Iced tea.
Have a green tea. I mean, that's pretty cool stuff.